Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought, of course, that I would give my fight breakdowns and my fight previews of the five great cards that, in my view, are happening, or the five great fights that are happening on the UFC. God, what's the card? Excuse me, UFC 298 card. Now, for those of you, of course, overall that have not heard by now, UFC 300 is going to be upon us, and of course, every single time that it's ends up on an 100 or a double O. Dana White, of course, wants to make it a special occasion. And UFC 300 I think is pretty good. UFC 299 also is very good. I believe that headlined Sean O'Malley in that rematch against that one Latin fighter that ended up stopping him. I believe those lead kicks. I can't remember the dude's name at the moment. I apologize, but I believe it headlines that and also has Dustin Poirier. And a couple of other decent fights. However, this fight card right here, it probably overall, in my view, is the best out of all of them, at least overall from what I see. I mean, literally almost everybody is on this card. Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria, who of course you see both right here. And let me tell you what, just in my personal view, Alexander Volkanovski is one of the greatest UFC fighters that I've personally ever seen. I think that he's an excellent striker. I think that he has excellent grappling ability as well, especially wrestling. I think that he's excellent with his legs, especially overall with tiring down his opponent's legs. Especially with those early on calf kicks and other stuff like that. However, what I'll say is this: Volkanovski is gonna have to be very careful in this fight, man. Just in my personal view, this kid right here, Ilia Topuria, huge threat to that Alexander Volkanovski. And ever since that I've seen this kid a few years back, ever since he ever since he spazzed out on Paddy Pimblett, this kid has been a major threat. Excellent boxer for a UFC fighter. Great on the ground. Black belt, I believe, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Submitted Bryce Mitchell, completely outboxed out of Josh Emmett. Which, of course, if you're an elite fighter, isn't the hardest thing to do. But Ilia Topuria is a real threat. Make no mistake about it. And this is just my personal view. Ilia Topuria, at least when it's going to be compared to Alexander Volkanovski, this kid right here is going to be the biggest threat in terms of a striker that Alexander Volkanovski has ever fought, in my personal view. And yes, that includes better than Islam Makhachev. That includes better than that a Max Holloway. And some people overall might disagree. That doesn't necessarily mean that Alexander Volkanovski cannot be dominant in the fight. But what it does mean is that he's going to have to be very careful. And he's going to have a multitude of game plans within this fight, and that he's going to have to be very careful, just in my personal view, not to keep this in the mid-range the whole time. Because this kid right here is very, very talented. He's very quick. He's got a little bit of power as well. He's also got great grappling ability, especially with his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background. So we're going to see how this fight plays out. But anyways, I'm going to give my fight predictions overall within that of the five main events that are going to be happening. Between that of Volkanovski and Ilia Topuria, Robert Whitaker and Paulo Costa, Jeff Neal and Ian Gary, Henry Cejudo versus, I believe, Marab, that one Georgian fighter. And of course, there's also Kopylov versus, I believe, Anthony Hernandez. So this is a very good card right here. A lot of great either up-and-coming names or a lot of great crossroads fights that are going to be happening here, including Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria, because I'm not really quite sure where Volkanovski is right now in his career. Of course, he is on a very dominant stretch, and he's pretty much in his prime. But he was knocked out in his last fight, I believe, in the first round against that of Islam Makhachev. But anyways, let's get into it. Let's see what they have to say.
I think this old man needs to teach this young fella a lesson. What do you reckon?
Hey, you see how he came dressed? You already know what's going to happen. You just came ready for the retirement. Look how you look. As an old man.
Get a good spanking, that's what's going to happen,
hey? Alexander Volkanovski's hilarious. I'll give him that. I like the way that Alexander Volkanovski is handling Ilia Topuria. Topuria, of course, a lot of people have compared him to Conor McGregor, and it does appear that he is trying a little bit to embrace that Conor McGregor mentality or that trash talk vibe. A lot of people have really tried to copy it. A lot of people just really don't have the Conor McGregor type of charisma and pizzazz, especially when it comes to trash talking. That's more of a thing, especially when you talk about trash talking on that level. It's really, you have it or you don't. Certain guys overall have it, to a great degree. Some guys are on an all-time great level when it comes to trash talking. Conor McGregor and Muhammad Ali, those were two guys that pretty much were the best of the best. Now Ilia Topuria, he does appear to get under some people's skins, but it is what it is. But Volkanovski, he seems pretty cool, calm, and collective. However, I'm going to be very interested once again to see how Volkanovski handles this fight, because in my personal view, Volkanovski is going to have to try to make this fight a brawl. I don't think that it would be in his best interest to stay in the middle of the ring and just wait for counters like what he usually does. And Volkanovski's a guy, he can fight in pretty much any style. If he needs to wrestle with you or grapple with you, he will. If he needs to overall to go after your legs with the kicks, he will. If he needs to, fight coming forward or fight going backward, he'll do that. He'll do that. But this kid right here, like I said, he's going to be the best striker that Alexander Volkanovski has ever fought. Just in my personal view. And yes, that includes better than Max Holloway. Who, like I've already stated. And Holloway's a great fighter. Even an all-time great fighter. But as I've always stated about Max Holloway, just in my personal view, I always thought that he was a bit overrated, just in my personal view. Not because he's not a great champion or a great fighter, but there's a reason why Max Holloway, almost every single time that he steps up in great class, especially against a great fighter that can handle his size, like a Volkanovski or a Dustin Poirier, and we'll see how he does against Justin Gaethje. There's a reason why he usually gets completely outclassed in each and every single one of those fights. Now, the second fight with Max Holloway and Volkanovski was very close and could have went either way. A lot of people, of course, thought it went to Max Holloway, which, I don't mind. I thought it was a fight that could have went either way. But the first and third fights, they weren't relatively close. In the third fight, Volkanovski had completely outboxed him because Volkanovski, believe it or not, is a better all-around striker and a better all-around fighter than that of Max Holloway. Max Holloway, even though, he's a great striker and he's a great all-around fighter, he's also very stiff. He doesn't change his levels very often, at least as much as what he needs to, and he just doesn't move his head enough. It just is what it is, and that's why it was so easy for Volkanovski to really beat Max Holloway in 2 out of 3 of those fights. And Poirier also, for that matter, as well. In that second fight, I had a lot of Max Holloway fans, try to go back and forth with me and debate with me and say, oh, it was really close and Holloway got robbed. That fight was 4 rounds to 1 easily. It is what it is. Poirier easily won the first 2 rounds of that fight. Damn near knocked Max Holloway out on his ass. But I'll give Max Holloway overall credit. He has a beard on him. He has a chin on him. And once again, we'll see where this up-and-coming fight goes with Justin Gaethje. I've already stated this. Max Holloway is a fighter that should have fought at 155 a very long time ago. He's pretty much a natural 155-pounder. But overall, once again, and don't get me wrong, he's still a great champion. But a lot of the fighters that Max beat, in my view, they were either way too small, overall, or, they just probably were not as elite as some of the 155-pounders. Like I said, there's a reason why every single time Max steps up in class, why he pretty much gets completely dismantled or outclassed in those fights, But it is what it is.
Okay? He said he's gonna humble me. Stand up and do something.
And some people are gonna disagree with me on that statement. Oh well. Brian Ortega, in my view, very good fighter. Not as elite as what Volkanovski or Poirier are. Just is what it is. Frankie Edgar, by the time that Holloway defeated him, I think that Frankie Edgar was a little bit past the hill, and he was knocked out not too long before by that of Brian Ortega. But I'll still give him credit for that. But I think that the Jose Aldo wins for sure were probably Max Holloway's best win. And to give him credit, he did defeat a lot of the top contenders at 145, like Ricardo Lamas, and some of the other guys there, Jose Aldo, and some of the other guys there. But during his title reign, would I say that just in my view that it was the strongest? Probably not. But it is what it is. Once again, the record goes to show for itself. Every single time that Max pretty much gets in the ring with a fighter that can handle his size and handle his skill set, he pretty much loses. It is what it is.
Humble me. I'm here, right in front of you. Do something. The good thing,
You get ripped up, mate.
very educated person. I don't wanna slap.
You see me in an old man outfit, now he wants to be a hard fella. Hey, how about that?
Sit down.
I tell you what, Volkanovski is talking all that shit, but he better be taking this guy seriously. This guy is faster than him. He moves in and out, very well. His feet and hands are faster than him. If I'm Volkanovski, I'm keeping my hands up throughout the majority of this fight. I'm using my lead hand. I'm attacking his legs very early on within this fight because I don't want Ilia Topuria to be quicker than me throughout the majority of the fight. That's what you have to do. Kind of like in boxing, they say chop that tree down. and go for the body. Volkanovski's going to have to go to the body, I believe, with kicks and punches as well, but especially go after those legs. Ilia Topuria also will go after the legs, but he doesn't usually go after the legs, at least from what I've seen, as often as what a Alexander Volkanovski does. So Volkanovski is going to have to do, something overall with those calf kicks, with those low kicks. He's going to have to start that off very early and hope to tire out Ilia Topuria, and also try to make this a grappling match in my view. If I'm Alexander Volkanovski, I'm trying to make this a grappling match, and also once again trying to tire him out, and I'm trying to pressure Ilia Topuria, of course, do it, intelligently, moving in and outside of the range. You're going to have to use your feet to move in and out, because Topuria is a very good mover. He knows how to occupy the vacated space, and on top of that, he knows how to use his feet to the best of his advantage. He's also very responsible defensively. Now, at times, you can get Ilia Topuria. You can get him to be a little bit overzealous, for him to get a little bit too excited, and sometimes if he feels that he's getting a little bit too many strikes in there, he might overthrow, or keep a hand down or something, and you might be able to catch him. So, could Volkanovski maybe try to bait him or to feint him, into getting that? We'll see.
Hey, I won't be looking like this Saturday night. Saturday night, I'm going to be lean and mean. Coming for your head.
You're going to see what's going to happen on Saturday night. You're going to see what's going to happen to you. I'm going to humble you. I'm going to show you levels. I'm going to walk the floor with you.
Hey, I'm going to make this look
walk
easy.
the floor with you. I'm going to
Hey, I'm going to make this look...
Let me tell you what, if Alexander Volkanovski does not take the right approach, Ilia Topuria very well could dominate this fight. This is not a kid that you want to mess around with, and certain people might disagree with me. Ilia Topuria is not just a live dog in this fight. This is a 50-50 level fight. Listen, Volkanovski I think is a great fighter, but there is certain things that Ilia Topuria I think that he might have the advantage in over him. I think he's going to have the faster hands and the quicker feet. And Volkanovski also, even though he's a great striker, he does need to be careful overall with the movement of his head as well. I don't think that he moves his head terribly. I think, for example, he moves it better than Max Holloway, but sometimes especially he can move it back, in a straight line a little bit too much. He's got to change levels a little bit more as well.
Easy.
You see that belt?
Yeah,
That's
I've
the
seen it
last
for
day
a
you
while
enjoy
now, and
that
I'll
belt.
keep seeing it.
That's the last days you are enjoying that belt. Because it comes
I've
my
seen this
house.
belt for a while, and I'm going to keep
Comes
seeing it.
my ways.
I don't see too well, but
I
I'ma
declare
be all right.
myself in name of God as a winner on Saturday night. I'm gonna take your head off.
What makes you different? Why are you the one when he's beating everybody else in the division? Why are you the one?
Evolution of this.
The reason why Ilia Topuria is different overall than all the other fighters is because he's the most skilled fighter that Alexander Volkanovski has ever fought at 145. And I know a lot of people are they're going to laugh at that and all this other stuff. When Alexander Volkanovski kind of fought Jose Aldo, Jose Aldo was still a very good win. You can argue that he had already kind of been broken mentally ever since the Conor McGregor knockout, but that was still a very good win. Of course, he beat Chad Mendes and those guys. But when you just talk about his championship reign, of course he beat Max Holloway. This is just my view. Ilia Topuria is a better all-around striker than Max Holloway. He's more defensively responsible. He moves his head more. When it comes down to it, I think that his punches are a little bit more articulate. That's not to say that Max Holloway is not a great striker. He is. But once again, there's a reason why Volkanovski kicked his ass very clearly 2 out of 3 of those times. It just is what it is. There's a reason why Volkanovski is 3-0 against him. Topuria is an extremely gifted striker. On top of that, he's an extremely gifted submission artist. Now, if this goes to the ground, I would probably bet on Volkanovski because I don't think that Volkanovski has ever been submitted. And on top of that, he's just a very girthy and very thick guy. And I think that if you're Volkanovski, you really need to impose your will on this kid. You really need to impose your size, your power, your strength, your wrestling ability. Try to keep this up against the cage. Really just get into a dirty fight with him. Because if you try to outstrike him in the middle of the cage overall like you do regularly, I think Volkanovski is going to find out very quick that this kid, he's going to be a little bit more troublesome than what he thinks.
Game. I represent the evolution of this game. I represent the new generation of mixed martial arts. After this Saturday night, I'm going to change the whole game of mixed martial arts. I'm going to end with his word, and mine's going to start. And you all will become an instant fan, so shut the up right now.
I'll tell you what, this kid has a lot of confidence heading into this fight, and for good reason. He is a very big threat. This is a 50-50 level fight, to be quite honest with you. I'm not really quite sure exactly who to pick. I need to know exactly what Volkanovski's strategy is going to be. He's shown that he can beat everyone in that division, but once again, to be honest with you, this is just my view. I think that Ilia Topuria, I think that he's going to be the biggest threat that Volkanovski has ever fought at this weight division. Especially just with his style. He has very quick feet, very fast hands, and with the way that Volkanovski fights, he's going to have to be very careful. Because sometimes he can keep his hands down, overall a little bit too low, or at least not keep them overall to his face. I mean, he covers very well. He's a very good defensive fighter. But at times, he doesn't keep his hands up all the way as what he needs to, and that could potentially get him caught. We'll see. But, I expect Volkanovski to be prepared. I expect him to counter well. I mean, to be honest with you, this is a very hard fight for me to predict. Because there could be a multitude of factors in here. I would need to know how well Volkanovski is going to be after that knockout loss. I also need to know what type of strategy he's going to take. I'm not really sure whether Volkanovski is going to try to strike with this kid or whether he's going to try to mix in striking and grappling. In my view, Volkanovski should also really try to mix in the grappling up against the cage and on the ground. If he really tries to outbox Ilia in the middle of the ring, he could potentially do it because he's a great striker. He has great anticipation and he has great defense. But Ilia also has great defense. He also has great anticipation. He's very quick when it comes down to it. And he also has decent punching power as well. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'll probably pick Alexander Volkanovski by decision. Or maybe latter round stoppage. But if Ilia Topuria ended up winning this fight, I wouldn't be surprised at all. To me, and a lot of people will disagree with me, this fight's a coin toss.
Now, some of you can come to upstairs and do something.
That's what I've always
Do something.
said. You want to earn your not given to you. He took advantage of taking a photo with the belt, and
there he goes, trying to be Conor McGregor. I guess that's what people meant. Just to go back to that fight, if you take a look at the highlights of Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo, and even Jose Aldo will tell you this, Conor McGregor got so all up in Jose Aldo's head in that fight. Conor McGregor is one of the greatest trash talkers of all time. Even the fights that he ended up losing, Conor McGregor has just a great innate ability overall to get in someone's mind. He did it with the Khabib Nurmagomedov as well. But he knew, he went a little bit extra further for the Khabib Nurmagomedov fight because he knew that dude. He knew that dude was for real. That Khabib Nurmagomedov, that if he was going to beat that guy, he was going to have to pull every trick out of his book. And of course, he didn't end up beating that guy. He got his ass whooped. But it is what it is.
like I said, you may as well take advantage of it now. You're never going to see it again. Not until I teach you a lesson. Maybe one day you could be a great champion. I'm going to kick your ass first. You'll learn your lesson. Maybe you can bounce back after that. But till then...
We'll see about that, Mr. Alexander Volkanovski. Once again, this kid is no light touch. and in my view, he's going to be a harder challenge for you than what Max Holloway was in any of those fights. He's going to be a harder challenge for you overall than what was his name? Yeah, Rodriguez. Who in my view is a relatively one-dimensional striker. He's going to be harder for you than any of the guys that you fought at 145, just in my personal view. Than Brian Ortega. He's going to be a harder fight than any of those guys. Just with his style. Volkanovski, hopefully for him, he'll take the right approach. In my view, he has to make this a very dirty brawl, a very dirty fight. He has to really overall wear out his legs. He has to really overall try to put him up against the cage and grapple him and scare him. And then if he ends up doing that, he might be able to completely dismantle Topuria in the middle of the ring. But if this stays up on the feet the whole entire time, I just think it's going to be a little bit too risky for Volkanovski. And I think that he should take a little bit of a different approach. But I expect Volkanovski's fight IQ for that to kick in. But we'll see.
Get your hands off my belt.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say this is an amazing crowd. A lot of energy from Anaheim. A round of applause for you guys. You guys are amazing. It's such good energy to be here again. The last time I was here was 2019 against Romero. It was a great fight, and I love to be here one more time for you guys.
Now, of course, the next fight right here is going to be Robert Whittaker versus Paulo Costa. Who do I personally predict to win this fight? I predict Robert Whittaker to win this fight because I think that he's the all-around smarter fighter and quicker fighter and more multi-dimensional fighter. But Robert Whittaker, of course, is coming off of a stoppage loss over Duplessis. I believe that one Southern African fighter, who, of course, now is the UFC champion. Some people, of course, say debatably because a lot of people thought he lost the Sean Strickland fight. I never watched it, so I can't tell you. But at the end of the day, I do predict Robert Whittaker to win this fight. I think he's going to be faster, both with his hands and his feet. I think that he's a more multi-dimensional fighter, and I think that he's smarter. I think he's more than likely going to go after Costa's legs at the early of the rounds, working with his jab. But Whittaker also has to be very careful. A lot of the times why sometimes he ends up getting knocked out in some of these fights or knocked down is because Whittaker has a very big problem with not keeping his hands up. they're right down overall by his ribs. And, he does that to be a little bit quicker and to entice people overall, to come in on him. And he's a very good counterpuncher. He's a guy that, is a very all-around great fighter. But he has to be very careful because Costa, even though in my view he's a relatively one-dimensional brawler, when it comes down to it, Paulo Costa, he's still very powerful. And he can still get in on you. And one shot is basically all it would take from Paulo Costa. But I predict Robert Whittaker to win this fight. It wouldn't surprise me if it was by latter round stoppage in the third round or by decision. But I'm going to predict more than likely Robert Whittaker to win by decision. But be careful because Paulo Costa is a very big power puncher.
Yes, I have a living here in Rich, very close to here, Orange County. Somebody from Orange County right here? Yeah? I love the place. So, yes, this is a kind of a long break since my last fight, but I could fix all my injuries, and I'm so happy. The happiness is the word to translate what I'm feeling right now, and I'm gonna knock this guy Saturday 17, and I'm gonna run for the title shot next.
Well, you're. There's no offense against Paulo Costa, but in my view, you're not a championship level fighter. Paulo Costa is what I would call an elite level brawler. He's not an elite level high IQ fighter. He's just not. And that's why when I predicted Israel Adesanya versus Paulo Costa, I predicted Adesanya to knock him out within 2 rounds, and that's exactly what happened. I just don't see Paulo Costa as a high IQ level fighter. I think that he's a very dangerous fighter. I think that he's still a great top contender. But I think that he's a brawler. I think that that's pretty much all he is and all he's ever going to be. Now, of course, apparently he recently got with Henry Cejudo's trainer, I believe. I believe that was a recent move. If I'm wrong about that, someone correct me. So we'll see where he goes. Maybe his fight IQ did improve a little bit. But a lot of the times, especially when it comes to fighters, or just athletes in general, but a lot of the times, especially within a fight game, just because of the pride and ego and just because of the way that they prefer to fight or the lack of patience, you usually can't change a tiger's stripes.
I don't do a lot of talking, man. My fight speaks for itself. I'm going to go out there. We're going to put on the show. I'm going to get this dub, and I'm going to go back home.
Every single.
This is another Conor McGregor build-up, and that of Ian Gary, the cuck, as Sean Strickland would call him. And I somewhat agree with that, of course, because of the situation with his wife. But all that aside, just to predict this fight between that of Ian Gary and Jeff Neal, it's going to be a very interesting fight as well. Like I said, this is a very great all-around card. Ian Gary, in my view, I would have to predict him to win this fight. I just think he's going to be bigger, lengthier, and more powerful. Jeff Neal's a very decent boxer. He's a very decent striker. But in terms of Jeff Neal, there's usually a reason why he loses a lot of his bigger fights. I don't think that he moves laterally enough. I don't think he moves his head enough. I don't think he changes levels enough. I think that, I think that he's a very decent fighter, but I think that his striking could use a little bit more variety. And Ian Gary, I'm not saying that, maybe he could use a little bit more variety, but at the end of the day, he's the undefeated fighter. I think that he's going to come in with a little bit more confidence. And I think that, when you have the level of power that he has, I think that it might possibly lead Jeff Neal astray. But we'll see what happens. Jeff Neal, he's a decent little fighter, but I do predict Ian Gary more than likely to win that fight. I think that more than likely he's going to try to maybe possibly keep him at range. I wouldn't surprise me if Ian Gary maybe pressured him a little bit. He's done that with certain fighters. Ian Gary at times can get a little bit too hungry for the knockout. So, so I mean, potentially that maybe could be a problem. So we'll see. But I predict Ian Gary more than likely to either get the stoppage mid-round or to win by unanimous decision.
One of you is talking about me. Every single one of you is here to see me. I'm going to get my hand raised Saturday night and I'm going to silence every single one of you. I'm going to do what I do best. I'm going to show up. I'm going to show out. And I'm going to get my hand raised in spectacular fashion. That's it. That's my only job.
It's not gonna happen. I'm gonna be winner of February 17th, and I'm gonna make.
This right here, another amazing fight. Merab versus that of Henry Cejudo. Excellent, excellent fight. Once again, this card, for those of you that aren't even UFC fans, you really should get this card. Or at least watch this at the sports bar or something. This is going to be such an excellent card because there's so many crossroad fights here. This is another crossroad fight because Merab right here, who I believe is the number 2 ranked contender at the 135-pound weight division. This is going to be an excellent fight because Henry Cejudo, of course, he was a 2-weight division champion when he was able to beat that of Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson at 125 and then Marlon Moraes, I believe, at 135. Of course, recently he lost to Aljamain Sterling. I think that he came back and won another fight, but I can't remember which fighter that he beat. If I'm wrong about that, someone correct me. But this fight right here, this is going to be a very interesting one. It's probably not going to be the most entertaining of the night because both Henry Cejudo and Merab especially, he's a wrestler. This is going to be very interesting because this is only going to be a 3-round fight, and to be honest with you, some people may prefer this to be a 5-round fight. I think as a 3-round fight, this is going to be very interesting because Merab is a cardio horse. He's almost like a lot of those Dagestanis, almost like a lot of those Russians. They pretty much just come and attack and they blitz you the whole entire time and they just have excellent cardio and they wrestle you. and Henry Cejudo, of course, is an Olympian, champion type of wrestler. I believe that he won a gold medal. If I'm wrong about that, someone correct me. But Henry Cejudo also a excellent Olympian level wrestler. But he's in this fight against Merab, overall, who I believe is going to be bigger, stronger. I think Henry Cejudo still is a natural 125 pounder. He's going to be dealing with the guy that a lot of the times has great cardio, and usually doesn't stop the pressure. And I seen his last fight against Petr Yan. Now, to be fair, Petr Yan, maybe he wasn't quite the same fighter. I don't know. But, he pretty much outdid Petr Yan in every single round when I watched that fight. Merab is nothing to mess around with. He can strike a little bit. Striking probably isn't as strong as his wrestling. And Henry Cejudo probably is a better striker. But Henry Cejudo, when you take a look at his stance, he almost appears to have a little bit more of a taekwondo or that of a karate stance. And sometimes that leads to his hands not being as far up as what they need to be, and sometimes his head being a little bit too stiff. So Merab might be able to take advantage of that. He also might be able to go after Henry Cejudo's legs. And I remember Henry Cejudo, in that fight against that of Marlon Moraes, he was not defending the leg kicks well, but eventually he was able to get on the inside and do it, because Marlon Moraes was not able to deal with some of the inside counters of Henry Cejudo and the grappling, I believe. But this dude is, in my personal view, he's going to be bigger, he's going to be stronger, and he's going to be potentially just as good of a grappler as what Henry Cejudo is. So in my personal view, I would probably have to go with the Georgian in this one. I'd have to go with Merab. But this is a very interesting fight. It's also another 50-50 level fight. If I'm Henry Cejudo, I'm trying to trap Merab, and I'm trying to push this fight forward. Overall, trying to push him back a little bit, trying to keep it in the middle of the ring, go after his legs early, just like I advised Volkanovski to do with Ilia Topuria. But in this case, you're going to have to do it because this dude is a wrestler, and he's going to be putting on constant pressure, throwing, low kicks at your legs, or possible calf kicks, when it comes down to it, or thigh kicks. This dude is a cardio horse. He's no joke. So once again, Henry Cejudo, in my view, he's going to have to try and make this a little bit more of a striking battle. Now, of course, in the grappling game, he's going to have to, show that he can, hold his own as well. But this dude right here, this dude overall is a complete workhorse. He's a big threat.
Make Mexican people happy because Mexican people need to represent Mexican flag. I'm gonna make Mexico proud, okay? I'm gonna represent Mexico on February 17th. Let's go! Let's go, guys! Henry, I respect you, but it's my time, my friend.
Я тебя порву. You will see February 17th. You heard me? Я тебя порву.
Let's see. Be ready.
Henry knows if he ends up losing this fight that he pretty much might as well retire. Because if he keeps on losing fights, then, you know, this record of him being champ, and this record of him being one of the greatest fighters of all time, all that's going to get diminished. His goal, of course, once again, is to get to the belt, you know, and win the belt at 135, which he probably should have done against Aljamain Sterling, but he didn't throw quite enough in that fight, and the reach and the wrestling also was a bit much from that of Aljamain Sterling. You know, but it is what it is. This dude right here, once again, is a great wrestler. He's not going to be as lengthy as what Aljamain Sterling was, but he's going to be right there with Henry Cejudo. If Cejudo can potentially outstrike him early, go after his legs, and really hurt him with something, then Henry Cejudo can win this fight. But this dude right here is he's a very great wrestler. He's somewhat defensively responsible. He's not the most elite striker that I've ever seen on the planet, but he does it well enough. And, you know, once again, Cejudo at times, you know, he does need to move his head a little bit better. He does need to change the levels a little bit better. And also, I'm going to be interested to see how he defends Merab's kicks. So, we'll see. But as for a fight prediction, I have Merab by decision.
No, my friend, no. You're going down.
You're dead.
You're going down.
You're dead.
Never. You never see me there. Okay, let's go, guys.
That's between them. That's between them, man. Like I personally just want to fight. I gotta get through this hair transplant. And once I get through him, obviously.
What?
Like I said, fight for the belt, and then yeah, of course, 145 is still the mission.
Stoked to be on it. The crowd's already wild, so I can't wait to get in there with them.
Ребят, добрый вечер. Я очень рад такой возможности. Мы покажем отличный бой. Будет жарко. Hey guys.
Another very great fight right here. Anthony Hernandez versus, I believe, what's this dude's name? Roman. I thought it was Norman, excuse me. Roman Kopylov. Roman Kopylov, you know, I believe was on the Contender Series. This dude, very powerful, very quick, excellent striker. Anthony, however, this is going to be a very interesting fight because Anthony Hernandez, he's going to be showing certain things that have been shown to be weaknesses in Kopylov's arsenal in the past, such as grappling. Anthony Hernandez is a guy that can last a whole entire fight, and he can grapple. So this is going to be a very interesting fight. Kopylov, I do believe, is going to be the better striker of the two. I think that he's probably going to be more powerful. But the question will be is that can he handle the grappling of Anthony Hernandez? Anthony Hernandez, I believe, within, you know, his 12 fights or, you know, however many fights that he has 7 stoppages by submission. So this is going to be very interesting to see because Kopylov definitely did lose one fight, I believe, by that of a rear naked choke. You know, I believe against, can't remember that one dude's name. But he also lost another fight, I believe, by decision, someone with the grappling, even though, honestly, against Duraev, I believe. I actually thought that Kopylov won that fight, you know, at least potentially. But this is going to be very interesting. If I had to make a fight prediction, I go with Kopylov. You know, I'm going to predict him to get a stoppage in the second round. I think that he's going to be quicker. I think he's going to be stronger. And I'm going to assume that more than likely that his handability of the grappling that has gotten a little bit better. It has been, a couple to a few years, I believe, ever since those losses. If I'm wrong about that, someone correct me. But Kopylov looks like he's gotten a little bit better. However, what I will say is this, is that Anthony Hernandez, he also can take certain advantages because if you can push Kopylov back, he will lose a little bit of confidence and he'll start to throw a little bit less. On top of that, at times, even though he's very quick, sometimes his hands can be down a little bit too low as well, especially, and have a little bit of a lazy jab. So if he can counter him over the top with something, with that, that can be a potential problem. But I'm going to assume that Kopylov, that he's adjusted a little bit. I believe that he'll definitely be the better striker. I think he'll be the quicker striker and the more powerful striker. I'm going to assume a stoppage by that from Kopylov, overall probably over that of Anthony Hernandez. But once again, very interesting. This is another crossroads fight right here. All fights in a way are somewhat crossroads fights, but especially a lot of these because it could really lead to the beginning or the potential end of their career. Kopylov is a guy that has a lot of hype around him right now, but if he wants to go any further, of course, He's going to have to get past this guy, and he's going to have to really show that he can deal with the grappling and also the potential pressure and stamina of that of Anthony Hernandez. So let's see. It's going to be very interesting. But I predict Kopylov to get a knockout within that of the second round.
Hey everybody, I'm really happy to be here. This is a great opportunity, and we're going to start with a great fight for you. It's going to be a very exciting start for the card.
I agree. This card is absolutely stacked. What the fuck is that outfit that Henry Cejudo is wearing? It looks like he's repping for the Bloods. As you can see there, once again, there's a clear weight class difference in size. I just think that Merab, I think he's going to be a little bit too much. I think that the pressure is going to be too much. I think that his overall strength is going to be a little bit too much. But once again, Henry Cejudo is an all-time great fighter. I just think that, this fighter right here, I just think that he's, somewhat wrong for Henry Cejudo's style. But once again, Henry Cejudo might be very wrong for him as well, because if he can actually handle the grappling, the striking very well might go to Henry Cejudo. But Henry Cejudo also is going to have to be, very careful. He's going to have to change levels and move his head a little bit more. And be careful for those leg kicks. But I have Merab by decision. Going to be a very interesting fight with this one as well. All these fights are going to be potentially interesting. I didn't really quite comment on as much as the Ian Gary one, because I predict more than likely that Ian Gary is going to handle business, but we'll see with that. Jeff Neal's a decent striker, but, he just can't seem to usually pull it together when it comes to his biggest fights. This is going to be a very interesting one. Paulo Costa, in my view, in the past, he has been a relatively one-dimensional brawler. But he's still very dangerous, and Robert Whittaker did get stopped in his last fight, in the 3-round fight, and I think that he was stopped in the second round. So, once again, this is going to be very interesting. Volkanovski. And they have Volkanovski only as a minus 125 favorite, which means that more than likely he's probably only a 2-1 favorite. And let me tell you what, that's exactly what they should have him as. This kid is very dangerous, And Volkanovski, I think he's taking this kid more than likely seriously. And Volkanovski has shown me in the past that usually, other than the Islam Makhachev fights, that he usually takes the right preparations. And against Islam, of course, it's tough because the Dagestanis, they're some of the best fighters in the world. But I'm going to say that Volkanovski more than likely will win this fight. I'll go by a unanimous decision or 4th round stoppage, but I'm going to go with a decision. Ilia Topuria is a very, very dangerous threat. In my view, Volkanovski is going to have to go after his legs early. He's going to have to really grapple with him, and he's going to have to make this a very rough and tough and dirty fight. So he better be prepared, because this kid is fast. He's a great striker. He's defensively responsible at his best. He's going to be potentially the biggest threat that Volkanovski has ever fought in this weight class. So once again, this is going to be very interesting, but we'll see. And as for Ilia Topuria, what you have to watch out for is those counters when you come in, because Volkanovski, he's a very intelligent fighter. He can read a lot of the times what you're doing. He's very defensively responsible. And also, don't be afraid to go after Volkanovski's legs as well. You know, be very careful overall with getting a little bit too lenient or getting a little bit too lazy with the jab. Just be very careful. Don't leave yourself open, which a lot of the times that he doesn't, but sometimes he can, so he has to be very careful. Because if he gets hit with a good solid punch or allows Volkanovski overall to tee off on him early or have the lead in terms of the punches, it could not potentially end up well for Topuria, because Volkanovski, I'll tell you what, he's a very big dude. You know, at least in terms of, you know, he's 5'6", but he's almost like Canelo Alvarez. Like Canelo Alvarez or Gervonta Tank Davis for their weight classes. You know, they're probably, you know, Canelo's probably like about a natural 160 pounder. Gervonta probably natural 135, but you could even potentially argue them as a little bit bigger because of the amount of girth that they have. Volkanovski is one of those guys. He's a guy that's very defensively responsible. He can come forward. He can come backward. He's one of the few fighters overall that can be shorter than most of his opponents and still outcounter them, even with coming forward or coming backward, because that's how great and smart of a fighter that he actually is. But once again, it's going to be interesting, because if the power advantage does go to someone here, I would assume it's going to be Volkanovski. But once again, very interesting. I'll predict Volkanovski, but if Ilia Topuria ends up winning this fight, wouldn't be shocked at all. Really 50-50 fight. Out of all the fights on here, to be quite honest with you, this is probably the closest fight. That's pretty much about it for today. Thank you all so much for watching. My fight predictions are going to be Volkanovski by that of either 4th round stoppage or decision. I'm going to go with unanimous decision, probably. As for that of Robert Whittaker versus Paulo Costa, I'm going to go with Robert Whittaker for unanimous decision. As for that of Ian Gary versus Jeff Neal, I'm going to go with Ian Gary, probably with a unanimous decision. As for that of Merab versus that of Henry Cejudo, I'm going to go with Merab, I believe, with a unanimous decision. And as for the last fight, you know, overall, I'm going to go, I believe, with Roman. I forget the man's name. I apologize. Overall, damn it, what the hell is that dude's last name? Anyways, I apologize. I'm drawing a blank right now. But I'm going to go with the Russian in that fight. Probably by that of a 2nd round stoppage, but we'll see what happens. Gonna be very interesting. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to you all later.